Hey everybody, it's me, Laura, with the Eccentric Egg Lady, and today we're going to go ahead and we're going to test out Prismacolor Premier pencils on eggshell, and in particular chicken eggshell. So right here I'm graphing out on my egg, and this is very important. I was trying to figure out, okay, how would I do this? So instead of going with, okay, I'm going to go directly down the egg. No. Take your pencil and graph out actually it'll be three sections, and then with a horizontal line go right across the middle, and so this way then you'll have six sections all together to test your Prismacolor Premier pencils out on. Now I say Prismacolor Premier, but I also mean watercolor too. I really wanted to take both and kind of see how they would react on chicken eggshell. Right here again, I've got my three sections. We'll go ahead and I'll draw that line right across the center, but I'm going to introduce my pencils here. So I have Crimson Lake, Canary Yellow, and Copenhagen Blue for my Prismacolor Premiers. And then watercolor wise, I have my Sunburst Yellow, my Crimson Red, and my Copenhagen. And I try to keep these guys as close in pigment as possible. I really wanted to make sure that, okay, if I'm trying to compare apples and apples a little bit here. This way then you get a sense of not just colored pencil, but also watercolor pencil. So right here I'm going to go ahead and do my blue, and I'm going to do this on the side here. And on my upper left-hand corner here, where I've got that one segment, we're going to start putting in my blue. Now, what I do is I like to start from my line there and put down fairly hard. I want to really see how much pigment I can get out of it. And just to kind of give you guys an idea, you know, Prismacolor Premier pencils, they almost feel like when I'm putting them down like they're crayons. It's a very soft core type pencil. And so, you know, I put down pretty hard. And the thing is, you know what? It works great on chicken egg. Chicken egg has a slight, I want to say, a slight texture to it. Not completely smooth, but there is a slight texture, and you can kind of tell that. In a lot of ways, this is almost, in my mind, like a happy medium if you were to go to paper. Now here you're going to see I'm using my colorless wax blender, and where you have put down pigment on your shell, you know, you get your usual pencil marks, and a wax blender will make a lot of those marks disappear. I mean, you know, you are left with a really nice blend of pigment or color on your eggshell. So I really do suggest using a blender on these Prismacolor Premiers and your watercolor pencils. If you're going to really just go with the pencil itself, you're going to have to really make sure when you put down, you know, you kind of bear down a little bit. I did this on half shells. I wanted to give you guys a better sense, you know, just for viewing wise, what it looks like. But normally I would just take a regular whole drained egg and then start, and this is what this is, swatching on that eggshell to kind of see what this pigment looks like. Now right here I'm using my watercolor pencil, and I'm doing it on the lower half of this eggshell. I really tried my best to try and match up my watercolor pencil color to my regular colored pencil color. So bear with me. These are not always going to be as close in pigment, but I tried my best. And the reason why I did that was, and the nice thing about these two, it was like easy. It was so easy. I was able to find Copenhagen Blue on both watercolor and the Premier pencil. And so you get a direct correlation of what the colored pencil end looks like and what the watercolor pencil end looks like. And from right here, I wanted to go ahead and add my water in so you get an idea. I mean, look at that. Oh, I just love that. It is so beautiful to put down. You can use, and I use a little bit of water here just to get that pigment to flow for me, just a little bit. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and go to our reds, and I have my Crimson Lake and I have my Crimson Red in my watercolor, and I'm going to put my Prismacolor Premier right next to my blue, you know, on the other side of it. I wanted to get you guys an idea here. The reason why I'm doing these is, you know, this is swatching in colored pencil land, as I put it. A lot of people will swatch out their colors on the paper they're using, you know, whatever picture they're creating. And this way then they get a truer sense as to what that color looks like on paper. I would do the same thing with Eggshell. I highly recommend doing so. Now you're also probably wondering too, why Prismacolor? Not, you know, why not start with Crayola or some of the others? The reason for this is because I had to decide which kind of color pencils I really wanted to use. There's so many different brands out there. And as an artisan, I had decided if I'm going to sell my work in a colored pencil type thing, I want to make sure that the colored pencil is going to last. I did not realize going into this, and now really looking at it, that there is there's a society. It's called the American Society for Testing Materials. My husband actually, engineers use, you know, they get their materials tested in the environment to see if they'll last. So when I had to go out and figure out which pencils I wanted to go with an artist grade type pencil. Now Prismacolor got themselves tested. If you're going to go out and buy Prismacolor pencils, I highly suggest checking out the light fastness on this. Now you're going to say, okay, what's light fastness? Light fastness is how long that pigment will last on that particular surface, on that surface over time. So if you expose that particular pigment or color to direct sunlight, it will fade a lot faster than if you don't have it in direct sunlight. You know, like with eggs, I don't think it's really going to matter, but I want to make sure that the materials I'm using are artist grade and that they're tested under certain conditions, as they say, under museum quality conditions to last for a fairly long time. So my favorites right now are, you know, one of these is Prismacolor, but check the light fastness rating. Not all of these pencils are, you know, up to snuff, as I put it. The ones I'm using here are pretty good. You know, Crimson Lake had a pretty decent rating, but check the ASTM rating on these pencils. Okay, so now getting back to our video just a little bit here. I have my watercolor pencil here in my red, and I'm trying to do a good test by using just one swipe. It's really hard to do though. The water will activate this really well. What you have to also kind of see, and you know, the blue, I didn't really talk on it a little bit, but when it comes to the watercolor pencil, the more water you put down, the more likely you can also pick it back up, the pigment that is of that watercolor, again and again. Now you'll also notice here too, it kind of bubbled up a little bit. Sometimes that will happen on Eggshell. I just suggest going back in, and you can see also I'm picking up pigment, you know, just moving it around a little bit here and there to the point of where you like it best. Okay, so now I'm bringing in my Canary Yellow in my Prismacolor Premier and my Sunburst Yellow in my Prismacolor watercolor pencil. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to again swatch this out on my Eggshell on the other side. And again, I'm going to use a colorless blender to kind of blend it in. The thing is with my yellow, and it's really hard to see here on film, it's so bright. Oh my gosh. But trying to find, like I said, a yellow that would match up to another yellow so I could really test this out, it was a bit of a challenge. So from here, I'm going to go ahead and swatch out this upper part with my regular Prismacolor yellow pencil. And then on the bottom part, I'm going to go ahead and use my watercolor in yellow. I'll let you guys watch this just a little bit, and then we're going to go right to our next segment. Okay, bringing in my colored pencils and my watercolor pencil yet again. And this time around, I've got a new egg. It's all graphed out. We're going to go ahead and do blends between two colors. My first color is going to be my blue with my Prismacolor Premier. And I'm going to just start from that center point again. I'm going to do my little bit of a cross hatching there to kind of get the pigment down. And I like to go kind of dark and then lighten up as I go. And notice too, I'm also using my pencil while I'm further out on the pencil. That helps put down just a light bit of my color, and then it can blend a little bit easier with my next one. Thing is too, with Prismacolor, they are known for being very waxy. Pencils in general have a certain wax to oil quotient or ratio. Prismacolor is known for being a very waxy type pencil. I try to put down a little bit of pigment, but not tons and tons, because they always talk about that wax bloom that can happen. And I keep thinking, okay, would that happen on Eggshell? It's possible. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to blend these two up, and you're going to kind of see how that third color, of course, comes through in my green anytime you mix blue and yellow. Okay, now that I got my pigment down, I'm bringing in that colorless blender. Again, it is a waxy pencil here to kind of help blend these a little bit better together. And I really love blending. Oh my goodness. It makes such a difference on how this thing looks overall. With the Prismacolor, I really found that the colors were, to me, a little bit lighter than I would like, but it turned out to be a really nice blend anyway. And then we're going to go ahead and on the bottom part, and you see, even here, when I'm putting the color down, I'm going back in just to darken it a little bit. You are going to get crumbs. Anytime you're working, I really noticed this, especially from paper to eggshell. When you're doing Prismacolor on paper, yeah, you get a little bit of crumbing, that can happen. On eggshell, it just happens. The only one I didn't find that was quite like that was my Faber, and we'll get there eventually. But for right now with Prismacolor, I just found, guess what? I'm going to get some pigment up, so I put some more down, and that's why I use my brush. The brush comes in very handy. I use a dry brush for any time I'm handling these eggs. With my colored pencil, I like to brush off any extra pigment. This cuts down also on any kind of smearing and smudging that will come about, because you're bound to have the smearing and smudging. Now, you'll also notice at the very beginning, I introduced that glove. This is where the glove would come in really handy. And notice I'm not wearing it. I should be wearing it a little bit more. So here I really should be wearing that glove. But one of the reasons why too I'm not wearing it right here is because I'm using water. So I'm bringing in my water on my watercolor pencil here, and I would do the same with my varnish. Sometimes that glove gets in the way when it comes to dealing with a water or a varnish, but when it comes to overall pencil work, yeah, I would make sure I'd be wearing that glove. Okay, so here I'm bringing in my red and my yellow, and well, actually it's going to be my, I want to say my red and my blue. I wanted to go ahead and do, I wanted to do the red to blue first, just because. I love my red and blue. Anyway, I'm going ahead and I'm just swatching in my red. Again, I'm trying to put down a little bit of pigment, and then we're going to connect up that blue pencil, trying to make that blend, and using my colorless blender once again to connect the two so you can see that really nice difference. Okay, so again, I'm bringing in that colorless blender and I'm blending up my red and my blue. And you'll notice here, see those little tiny specks that are kind of darker? That is the extra pigment that's coming up from these pencils. Like I said, you're going to get some of that. And when you do, you're going to want to brush those off with a dry brush. Okay, again, I'm bringing in that red because I want to darken up that one area so badly. That's the one thing. Anytime you use that colorless blender, it's going to take pigment off. So you really need to go back in sometimes and just, okay, this area, I want it a little darker, so add in some more pencil. Okay, so you might notice here, I've got a little bit of a problem child going on. This is not working too good. The reason is, okay, when I went ahead and did these eggs and I cut them up, I had a few areas where the shell cracked. In doing so, I kind of glued it. So I used a little bit of super glue, and I'm winding up with this problem where the super glue, where I had tried to fix the shell so I could work on it, it's interfering a little bit. This is an interesting problem. I'm looking at this like, okay, how am I going to deal with it? And I went in and I was going to go ahead. I thought, okay, we're going to go ahead and put in the water. I want to go ahead and add this in because this is the watercolor section of the red and the blue. I thought, okay, we'll add that in. And notice I'm bubbling up. This kind of happens with super glue when it's already down a little bit. I thought, that's okay. We're going to work around this. And the reason, or I should say, the way I did that, and this is just something for you guys to troubleshoot moving forward. I'm really kind of glad this happened. If you got some kind of glue down or whatever, you know what? I worked over it. I thought, okay, fine, go ahead and go down. I'm going to let it dry up a little bit, or I'm just going to add in more pigment, which I did. I even brought in, right here, it's like, okay, I'm working it, and it's not going down. So I used my pencil even. So there was water down, and that's the nice thing with that pencil. You could take watercolor pencil and even dip it in water, and it's going to activate that pigment. Right here, again, I'm bringing in my blue. There's already water down, so it activates it automatically. Or I'm just bringing in my brush. And I worked this a ton. I really did. I went over and I thought, okay, I'm not happy with it. I thought, okay, let's just go ahead. I'm going to put down a little bit more, and then maybe we'll come back to this in just a little bit. Okay, so now we're going to go to our red to yellow combination, and I'm going to use my Sunburst Yellow and my Crimson Red in watercolor, and then my Crimson Lake and Canary Yellow in my Prismacolor Premier. And so we're going to start with our Premiers, and I'm going to do it again right on that top side, and I'm going to go with that darker kind of tone, that cross hatching at the very beginning with my red, and then I'm going to go ahead and blend that into my yellow. Again, I'm going to use that colorless blender to blend both of these. I say, I really like the blending part. You can go without the colorless blender. In fact, you could even go ahead and just get a stump and just blend it that way. Frankly, I just like the colorless blender. That's just me. That's just me. But again, when you go to do some of this too, anytime you blend, you're going to always pick up crumbs. You're going to have to brush that away. You're going to have to put more pigment down. The pigment comes up fairly easy, but once you work it in, you will get there where it's going to stay down and it's going to look really nice. Okay, so again, I'm using that colorless blender here, and in a lot of ways, sometimes this looks a little light to me. I don't know why, but with Prisma, and maybe it's just because it's a wax-based pencil, it kind of just does that. Again, I'm coming in, I'm putting more pigment down, and then I'm just trying to blend it up into my yellow. Okay, so now we're going to move to our Prismacolor, our watercolor pencils, and I'm going to bring in my red right here, and then I'm going to just blend this into my yellow, and we'll just add that water. Okay, so now you can kind of see again that I have that break in that shell. I tried to mend these just a little bit. I wanted to make it work. And, you know, it's kind of just the nature of the beast, right? You know, I used a little bit of my super glue to try and fissure the shell together, which worked okay. But again, like I said, you know, like I did with that last bit, I'm running into that same kind of problem where it's bubbling up a little bit and it's not exactly just wanting to take. But the more I work this pigment onto the shell, eventually I can get it there. And you'll see that in just a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to go back to this area that's just problematic. And you guys are going to be like, okay, you're going to rework it. I'm like going, yes, we're going to rework this again. And the thing is, you can. Look at how much blue I'm getting on. I'm dipping my pencil here. I'm really going for it. I figured to heck with this. I might as well just go ahead and try and put down the pigment really solid and kind of see what will happen. Now, the nice thing about this compared to paper is you can't do that on paper. Paper is eventually going to disintegrate underneath you. An eggshell will not. This thing, you can rework this a million different times or ways over, and you can constantly do that. You can rework and rework and rework it. It's almost like with oil paint. When you sit down to make an oil painting, you could put oil paint down right away for a while. You could let it sit there for a bit, and it's like, well, no, I don't really like that, and you can change it. You can do the same here. With eggshell, it's really nice. You're not having to worry about the paper disintegrating because you've got too much water down or whatever. You can actually rework it as many times over to make it right. So in this case, what I did was I just thought, to heck with it. I'm going to come in, I'm going to really solidly put down that pigment, and I'm really glad this happened because you guys now get a chance to see, oh, you can really darken these colors down on eggshell and really make the pigment move. You can lighten it. You can take stuff, pigment off. You can, like I said, you can work it as many times over as you wish. And right here, I'm just kind of trying to make it as nice and neat as I possibly can. It is a testing eggshell, but it's also kind of a nice eggshell to kind of just give myself a sense of what this is going to look like if I do a couple of different things. It also is giving me practice and trying to work with these colored pencils and my brush so I can perfect my techniques. All right, so I'm almost done trying to rework this thing on the blue and the red. And I figured, well, since I kind of worked on that part, let's go ahead and work on the red to yellow too. Like I said, the color wasn't exactly going down. So I thought, okay, fine, let's go ahead and just darken. Again, you could kind of see here I'm just dipping. I'm just dipping my pencil in there, and then I'm just, applying it right to my eggshell. And in some ways, it's kind of nice because you kind of forego the brush. You don't have to necessarily deal with it then. And you only deal with it really when you want to. You put down that pigment and you get you could come back in with that brush, to maybe blend it a little bit more. But you really are able then to put down the pigment if you go directly from your pencil. After going through the redo on that last egg, I decided I'm going to take another half shell and we're going to use our watercolor pencils yet again because I wanted to give a better sense of what this would look like, if I didn't have to go through redoing with all the extra pigment. So I'm coming in with my blue. I erased a little bit here and there, but I wanted to get a better sense of that transition of blue to red, giving you, what that watercolor would look like with all the extra adding in. I tried to also do this where I'd only put like one swipe of water down on these particular sections, just giving a better test as to what the Prismacolor can do. From here, I'm just adding in my blue. I'm going in, and yes, you did see that little bit of chicken that broke off. Like I said, these were only half shells. I thought this would be a better way to present how to do this. Normally and naturally, I would suggest to everybody out there, take a full egg and drain it and then do your testing. Don't do it on a half shell. It was harder this way. I really almost wish, looking back on this, I'm thinking maybe I should have just gone with the whole egg. It would have been easier to do. So here you could kind of see that testing, just, taking a natural watercolor swipe of this, you really see how it activates and how it moves so readily. Now, with Prismacolor here, because I know what the other color pencils will do, this is not my favorite watercolor pencil. By far, it is not my favorite. And I never really checked out the ASTM rating on these, on my watercolor pencils. I really can't tell you on that. I do know what my Prisma Premiers look like when it comes to the ASTMs. And actually, speaking about that, I would say when it comes to Prismacolor, if you're going to work Prismacolor on your eggshell and you want artist quality grade Prismacolors, don't go out and buy the sets. Instead, I highly suggest buying them by the pencil. Or if you've got a local store that carries your Prismacolor, check out the ASTM ratings on each of the pencils, because I was shocked. Most of my Prismacolors, with the exception of certain ones, did not have the highest ratings on those pencils. Now, for most people, this is not a problem. Light fast ratings, you're not going to care. Most people are going to say, I just want to go ahead and use my Prismacolors. I'm like, going, go ahead, do it. Use any color you want. But if you are an artist trying to sell your work, you're going to want that light fast rating. And in that context, you're going to want to go ahead and get the better pencils in Prismacolor. So I suggest buying open stock. Do not buy the sets, because then you'll just be wasting your money. Just buy the higher light fast rating pencils in your standard colors like blue, yellow, and red, and use those together to create your secondary and other colors in the different shades to get the specific color that you are looking for. All right, so from here, I'm just going to go ahead and do my blending with my Prismacolor watercolor pencils on this particular egg. I am reworking it a little bit here and there because, yes, I did get some of that bubbling up. But like I said, you work it just enough and you'll eventually get it where it's not going to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and let you guys watch the rest of this, and then we'll come back in with some of the results. Okay, so here are the 3 eggs I did my testing on, the one with the primary colors, the one where I blended 2 colors together, and then the 3rd egg where I did the blending but without the extra pigment involved. Please use these for study and reference, and if you like this video, please like, subscribe, and leave me a comment. I'm always wondering what you're thinking. Otherwise, I'm sending out my biggest hugs to each of you, and I hope you have a fantastic day.